My secret, just do something that ain't nobody ever done before, but make it sound like something that's always been there forever.
Welcome to This Filipino American Life, a podcast that explores the nuanced experiences of Filipinos in the United States at Iba Pa. My name is Elaine Delalas, and I'm joined by my fellow hosts,
Ryan Carpio,
Joe Bernardo,
and
Mike,
producer Mike. Yeah, Air Horn Central, and we have a special guest.
What?
Wait, am I still a special guest?
Yeah. Special guest. I was like, introduce her. She's also an episode.
Hey.
Okay.
We got to do the four, and then special guest.
You're like the ones who like reoccurring this special guest on the
yeah,
episode.
special guest.
Reoccurring.
Okay.
It just means to get lower than union scale, but anyway.
Look, okay, if this was Real Housewives, the four of us have peaches, and then she would be the one that's a special guest, best of friend of housewife. So,
Oh my God, I hate to admit that I know exactly what you're talking about.
see,
This is girly. This is girly.
Wait,
This is girly.
do your it's girly.
It's girly.
Yay! Girlie's here. It's like the police is here.
Hey, I appreciate when girly is here.
Me too.
Why is that?
I just
Because
do.
we like you, girly. What's going on?
Joe appreciates it too.
No, I'm sure it has other words.
Appreciate.
Sigh. So, what are we talking about today?
We have a lot of stuff to talk about before we
wow.
talk about
Before
the
we talk
discussion.
about that. Let's talk about our TFAL of the episode. Our TFAL of the episode is inspired by a text message that we got at 805-394-TFAL by one Brian Custodio. Is that right? Brian C?
Yeah.
Okay. He texted us and let us know that he was actually inspired to be a Patreon by the woman in his life. And her name is April Angeles.
What?
April Angeles.
Thank you, April Angeles.
Yeah, I've
Angeles, if I'm going to say it.
I've met a few April Angeles.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure we know her.
I'm pretty sure.
Along with
like-
we knew Brian Custodio.
How many Brian Custodians do we know? A few.
And April Angeles.
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you, April, for telling Brian
to donate to us.
Yes. Because I'm pretty sure it's technically your money. So, yeah, you get the shout out.
So people with partners out there, tell your partner to donate to us. It's cool.
And we'll shout both of you out, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what else?
So we have a few more voicemails to play.
Our voicemail is working?
Yes, they're working.
Oh my God.
And they're legitimate.
Oh my gosh. None of these jokes.
It's not just Noel. Hi, Noel.
All right. So here's the first one.
Hey, TFAL crew. This is Lauren calling in from the Bay Area. I hope you are all having a happy new year. And I wanted to say that I really enjoyed the Filipino martial arts episode you recently did. It was really enjoyable to listen to. I learned a lot from it. It's probably one of my favorites from you guys. And in that same vein, I wanted to ask, I don't know if any of you had seen The Last Jedi yet, and I'll try not to be too descriptive for any listeners out there who may have not seen it yet, but in that epic fight sequence from it, did anyone else think that there was that one guy who looked like he was doing a screama? Do you know what I mean? It was very brief. It was maybe a few seconds, but I keep playing it over and over again in my head, and I keep thinking, that looks like a screama. It looks like a screama. So if you know what I'm talking about, feel free to chat about it. I would like to hear what you think. Keep up the good work.
Spoiler alert, it was actually an Ewok fighting. No, just kidding. And yelling Filipino obscenities.
Ayun, maganda.
Putang ina, Luke Skywalker. You choreographed that, Joe, right?
Yep.
Eskrima?
So, there actually has been Eskrima embedded in the prequels of Star Wars, and probably the newest movies that just came out. There is a guy named Doug Chang, who apparently brought in some escrimadores. His last name is Robles, but he actually worked in Lucasfilm, and he demonstrated to George Lucas some eskrima, and he demonstrated with his friend Jonathan, and George Lucas liked it and started using it. And, using it in the films. So yes, you are correct,
Lauren. Look at you.
Yeah,
being all observant.
No.
so good eye, Lauren.
Winner, winner.
Yeah, I think I did catch that. Because, like, that scene was so dope, like that fight scene, and I was like, whoa.
La 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 la. Just spoiler alert.
I'm just saying it
Oh my
was a
God.
dope fight scene.
Why have you not seen this
I'm just
movie?
kidding. I
Also,
saw it.
it's-
I saw it.
Well, and actually, like in reference to like that last episode, Dennis Inosanto really kind of pioneered kind of the integration of that into kind of like the martial arts training for like a lot of these Hollywood films
Yeah.
to begin with. And so it's something that's kind of been a theme. Like if you pay attention to a lot of these action movies, there's always some element of that in there, just because visually it's very like appealing.
Yeah, and if you go on YouTube and you type in like Eskrima or Kali or Arnis, in movies or mainstream movies, you can see clips of them. So do that on YouTube.
Cool.
So here's another voicemail.
Hi, all. This is Berto. I'm a first-time listener, long-time caller. I'm a tad late, but I hope you're having a delightful 2018. My hopes and wishes for this year are for TFAL to have on Chris Wolf, Shotzi Blackheart, TJ Perkins, Jeff Cobb, Pablo Estori from ESPN, Roel Balon, this time in a voice acting capacity, Eric Bauza, and, of course, Joe Goy. Take care. Keep on doing what you're doing. RSP Centosino Greece.
What did I say? RSPs? What?
RFP? RSP?
RFP. I know Tocino Grease, but
I don't know.
okay.
RFP.
It's like
RSP.
rest in peace.
Rest in peace? I don't know.
Okay.
Hi, Berto. Thanks for your voicemail, and I want all those people to be on the show. Most of those are wrestling related, except for Pablo Estori. He's actually a writer, I think, a commentator for ESPN.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
What is this wrestling you speak of?
Wrestling?
Why would we want
Wrestling.
wrestlers on this show?
Because they're Filipino American wrestlers, and they're super cool. And the day that we're recording right now is the Royal Rumble, and I'm totally sad that I'm not watching it, but I'll watch it when I go home.
And I think we've reached out to TJ Perkins and to Pablo. Not
Chris
Pablo Torre.
Wolf.
Chris Wolf.
Chris Wolf.
And I think we had some exchange with Pablo Torre on Twitter, no?
He like retweeted your meme. The corned beef key.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Virality.
Yeah. And Eric Bauza is like a voice actor. So he does a lot of like cartoons and
Oh,
stuff.
okay. I was wondering who
So
that
that
was.
would be kind of cool too.
Yeah.
And Jokoi is a wrestler.
And Joe Coy is he's this up and coming comedian that I hear is
I
very
heard
funny.
about him. He's pretty funny.
I mean, his name sounds like Joke.
Oy.
Chuck-
Oy.
We want you on.
All right. Our last voicemail.
Hi there, this is Brian from Carson, California. Been listening to the podcast for about a few months now, and I've actually gotten through all the episodes except episode 20, which just posted. I really got to say, I think what you guys are doing is a godsend to the Filipino American community. I think what you are also really doing is helping us Filipinos, first, second, third generations, and those that have, moved from the motherland to the U.S., if anything, to really reconnect and really rekindle what it is to be a Filipino. There's a lot of humor in what y'all do, and I think that makes it fascinating. There's a lot of realness, if I may say, that I think is quite entertaining. But I think also what's really good is that y'all are just regular Filipinos and you're promoting us again, But that's not to say that definitely not to say that we couldn't help other cultures to also learn what it is to have national pride, whether you're Filipino or any other nationality or any other type of culture. I think keep doing what you're doing. Really interested to see what it is y'all can maybe do to get the city of Carson involved and Filipino Americans there. I think we're a booming city and a growing one, and things are changing in Carson. So on that note, I hope to hear more about your podcast, or more from your podcast, I should say. keep doing what you're doing, keep inspiring, and keep promoting what it is Filipinos are doing to make this country great again. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian from Carson. I wonder if you're Brian Custodio too.
Carson,
Sea
home
house.
of
See house.
Who house?
Cool House.
That's not the same.
It's different.
That's not the same.
Carson, 1/4 of Carson's population is Filipino.
Yes.
Yeah, I have family there.
Yeah, I think we all have family there.
I
You live behind the
family
IKEA,
there.
in fact. So
Oh, you did.
They have a huge Jose Rizal statue that just was placed there. They were home to the first Jollibee in Southern California.
This is true.
Jollibee.
Jollibee.
Shout out to Carson High School. Shout out to St. Philomena Church.
to Bishop.
Wow.
There's a lot of and Narbonne and Troy, or not Troy, but Narbonne. There's a lot of short flag schools, Filipino Americans. Jason Lastina of Brown Baked is from Carson.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Oh.
He went to Carson High School. Sea House.
Shout out to Faye Coons and Florente and Rose Ibanez and former mayor.
We're just naming all the people we know from Carson.
Former mayor and notorious embezzler of money, Pete Fajardo. Yes, whatever.
receipts right now.
Talking spicy.
No, Pete Fajardo was the first Filipino American mayor in Carson, and that was back in the 90s. And unfortunately, he embezzled some money or some
I
kind of
remember
weird
that.
thing.
I totally remember that.
Yeah, and yeah, it was kind of sad.
Yeah.
Since then, there hasn't been a Filipino mayor of Carson.
Oh.
Yeah.
But there's been a Jollibee, so that's
Yeah.
important.
Wah, wah.
But shout out to Brian. Thank you for your kind words. And yeah, TFAL is a conversational starter. We like to bring up issues that hopefully reverberate and folks continue to talk about these issues. So thank you for your support.
Yes.
And keep calling our voicemails. It seems to be working.
And texting us,
Yeah.
805-394-TFAL.
All right. And we have a few text messages that
Yeah.
came in. So I'm going to
That
read.
works too?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Nice.
So far, so good. No patotoys have come in.
Hey, don't mention
Now I'm going to have to send you one.
I know.
Oh, Ryan, don't do that.
I'm just kidding.
You don't need to send me one.
Wow.
He can see it in person.
Wow. Let's move on.
Okay, so this came from someone from Kentucky, based on your area code. Hello, TFAL. I'm a listener from Kentucky. I enjoy your podcast a lot. I'd like to suggest that you let listeners know what topics you'll be covering in your next podcasts so that your callers would be able to provide their opinions and or expertise. That might make it more interactive.
Thank you.
I like it.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Do we have a name? Did you say name or no?
They didn't give.
They didn't give
their
it-
name.
Oh, okay. Cool.
They gave their number, but we're not going to say it because that's
Okay.
rude.
Kentucky. I love bourbon.
I was like, I like Kentucky Fried Chicken. All of you knew I was good.
I know. I was like, I wonder if she's gonna. Yeah, she did it.
So our schedule is not entirely intact, but we do have a few things lined up.
Yes.
We have what's coming up in.
So
coming
in March, we're going to talk to Wasi, which is this queer Asian American band. They play like electro punk, like pseudo dancey, like MIA-esque inspired music. And so they're a duo. One of them is Panay, and they're going to come and talk about their experiences as queer Asian American women in the music industry.
Nice.
So if you have thoughts about that or questions, send us your text messages or emails or voicemails.
Yeah.
And then, Ryan, aren't we going to take a little trip somewhere?
What? Where are we going, guys? Vegas, baby.
Ching, 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 ching. Is that how a slot machine sounds
Yeah,
like?
I can't say Vegas, baby, without saying baby after it.
Really?
Vegas, baby. See, I can't do it.
Ching, 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 ching. And I feel like that's a slot machine, right?
Yeah.
I thought you said a big sound of a chicken or something. What is that?
So yeah, TFAL is going to Las Vegas.
It's spring break.
Spring break.
It's my
Oh my
favorite
gosh.
place.
So other than gambling, Vegas is known for having the fastest growing Filipino population of any metro in the United States.
Bet you didn't know that.
No,
I didn't
I guess
know
it's not
that.
known for having that, but yeah. So we plan to talk to folks about the Filipino Las Vegas experience.
Yes.
So if you have any questions, or if you have any suggestions of who to talk to,
Or if you're
let us
from
know.
there and you can house us, no. Or if you're from there and you work at a radio station, maybe we can help. You can help us out, or I don't know.
That's really
if you're
specific.
from there and you have a delicious restaurant that you would like to have us highlight, we're totally willing
We will accept your free meals gladly and willingly.
Yes.
for advertising.
All right, and so our next text is from someone from San Antonio. That person said, "Hi, TFAL. Big fan of the show. Favorite episode of the show so far is the short story of the Filipino and the drunkard.
Nice.
Very well done. I may have a different take on it, but overall found it to be inspiring and cautionary. To our fan in San Antonio, I suggest that you call and let us know what your take on on that episode is, and that'll be great." It's funny, when I was doing that, when I was doing research for my dissertation, ran into that story and just thought like, hey, nobody's ever talked about this story. I don't think people know about it, so we just decided to do it one day.
I have a friend. He's Korean American, who listened to that episode and he's like, "Dude, I really liked it."
Nice.
And he's one of our biggest fans. Actually, he listens to every episode. So shout out to Jimmy Kim.
Hi, Jimmy Kim.
Yeah,
Jimmy
he's awesome.
Kim.
He
I know Jimmy Kim also.
he told like his neighbors, like, "You guys should listen to this podcast." His like Filipino neighbors.
I was like,
Yeah.
I hope they're Filipino. Otherwise, it's like, oh, thanks, dude.
And our last text that we're going to talk about today is from someone from Hawaii by way of the Bay Area. He or she said, "Aloha. Y'all should come out to Hawaii. Growing up in the Bay Area and now residing here, there's a lot of Filipino activity and history that isn't shared. And for me, it's very interesting." So yeah, thank you for that.
Yes.
We would love to go to Hawaii.
Same
Yes.
We will accept your free airfare and
Anywhere in
for
accommodations.
Hawaii.
advertising.
Yeah. There's tons and tons of Filipinos in Hawaii.
Yes.
It's probably the state with the highest concentration of Filipinos.
Yes.
Filipinos started immigrating there in 1906.
They're girlies people.
They are my people.
Most are
My
Ilocano.
Lolo actually went there.
See?
Yeah, the Ilocanos everywhere.
Yeah.
I feel like I experienced a sort of culture shock when we first went there, because I just didn't expect there to be. Well, first of all, I didn't expect there to be so many Filipinos. And secondly, I also didn't expect to hear so much Ilocano.
Yeah.
They have Ilocano radio stations there.
What?
Yeah, or at least one, right?
So girly could translate for us because we would be totally clueless. 'Cause, like, no idea.
One time we went to the Plantation Village, which is kind of this historic site, and they made it to like a mini museum of Asian American labor.
Yeah.
In Hawaii, and the lady there was, I guess I was just saying hi, and I came in, and then she said, "Oh, are you Kamaina?" I go,
What?
So I was like, "Hey, girlie, come here. What's Kamaina?" And then,
Joe was like, "Can you translate?"
yeah, can you translate? And then,
That's not
she said,
Ilocano.
"It's not Ilocano. It's actually Hawaiian."
I was like, I think she wants to know if we're local.
Yeah. The answer to that is yes,
This
because
is yes, brother.
you get a discount.
But she was Ilocano. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was our experience when Mike and I went to Hawaii, is that everyone thought I was local and Mike was from the mainland. And I used it to my advantage because I wanted local price.
But yeah, we'd love to go to Hawaii, visit the Filipino Community Center.
Yeah.
They call it Philcom.
Philcom?
And
Physical man.
go to Elena's. Have you been
What's
to Elena?
Elena?
Oh my
No.
god, Elena's the best
Is it
restaurant.
good food?
Yes, they have. That's what they're famous to. That they invented the adobo rice omelet.
That's my favorite thing
Oh,
to
that's what they do at
eat.
Baby Stacks,
That's what they do
right?
at Baby
Yeah.
Stacks.
Yeah, that's a Hawaiian thing. Yeah, Hawaiian invention.
So Hawaii,
hungry.
do you want us to come to you? Like, invite us and pay for our trip because we don't have money.
Okay,
So that was all our thank yous
Yeah.
and voicemails and text messages.
thank you. Please keep them coming.
What else are we talking about today, Joe?
So we are going to talk about chismis and hiya and kind of Filipino social relations.
Oh, what is this inspired from?
So me and Girly went to watch Ang Larawan the other week.
Musical.
It's a musical, and they had some. They released it here in the United States a couple weeks ago, and after the movie, we just had a long discussion about hiya.
Yeah, so there were parts in the movie, that I didn't completely understand, and even first of all, I thought I was in trouble because the captions cut out at some point. I was like, oh no. I can't speak Tagalog fluently. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a really long 2 hours. But they eventually came back on. But even still, like, there were just nuances of the movie that I didn't completely get. And hiya, or, to translate the concept of shame, it was a pretty strong element in the movie. There was one scene. So it's kind of a little
Give us
bit
a
of
premise.
Spoiler alert. So the movie is about this one family in Intramuros before World War II.
Got it.
And they've fallen on hard times. Their father is this famous painter, but he's at this age where he can't paint as much as he was able to when he was younger. So he created this one painting that many people are willing to pay a lot of money for. And he gave it to his daughters, who are really resistant on selling it. And so they've fallen on hard times, and they are unable to pay for their bills, including, light electricity bill, water, etc. So there's a scene in this movie where the sisters are the lights turn off, and the sisters are kind of, they're pushing each other to go close the window because they're so ashamed that their neighbors might know that they don't have any money to pay their electricity bill. And I'm thinking, like, really? So they're kind of like fighting each other, and finally one of the sisters goes to the window, but she's like crouching below the ledge so no one can see her close it. And I'm just like, oh my God, just get over it, close the freaking window. And then she finally sticks her head out and realizes that the electricity is completely out in the entire neighborhood. I mean, of course she feels really silly that she did it, but that feeling of like being so shameful that, they don't have the resources to kind of live like the rest of their neighbors. I was just like, oh, please, next scene. That was one thing that I just didn't understand. And so Joe was like trying to explain to me like the whole concept of hiya and how it has good and bad things.
It's like the Force. It is the light side of the Force and the dark side of the Force. But anyways,
you're saying there's a good side to chismis and a bad side to chismis?
No, hiya.
Or hiya?
Yeah.
Or like, chismis is like the tool that keeps hiya together.
Relevant or
together.
Together? Okay.
Yeah. So chismis is basically gossip, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody in a group, in a social setting, if somebody is not following the quote unquote rules of society or rules of that group, then chismis is a way that kind of controls
The group.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No.
Does that make
It's like a check system,
Yeah.
right? Like
Checks
what
and
you're saying
balances.
is like, right. Like you're the gossip part of it is like almost your punishment if you, right? They'll talk crap about you.
Right.
Yeah.
So assuming that the neighbors were probably talking crap about the sisters because they couldn't afford to live the way that others should be living.
Right.
Yeah. And then I'm not trying to say that like I'm trying to say that it's not chismis is not and hiya are not just simply a Filipino thing.
No.
It happens everywhere, right? There's a whole shows that talk about celebrity gossip, right?
Right.
I mean, Latino culture is called chisme.
Yeah.
Like I'm a crew of friends, and we call ourselves the Chismes Council. I mean, that's what we
This is
call
true.
ourselves.
Well, Center Theater Group has like a monthly series, I believe, called Chisme y Queso, where actors get together and they kind of, they act out gossip.
I like this.
As ridiculous as it might sound. I mean, it's still really really entertaining to hear.
It's like a functionality of like culture. Like I call my dad King Chismoso because my whole family knows, like, if you want something to get like played telephone, you tell my dad, and then the information will be like in an instant. Everyone knows.
Yeah.
And then one of my titas is, I call her, because she also has chismes, so I call her the Baroness of Chismes. And then Mike is the Prince of Chismes because he is also a very active participant in Chisme. I don't have a title because I don't want one.
The anonymous.
Exactly.
Well, so reflecting on the concepts a bit more growing up, I think I started to I realized that, the whole concept of Hiya, I feel so adverse to it because it felt like this tool that that was used to prevent me from like speaking up, especially being a woman of color, a Filipina, also the firstborn in my immediate family and the only girl. Like, all of those things made me feel as if I couldn't speak up. I didn't have power. And so at some point, probably around like my teenage years, I coupled that with like this whole concept of Catholic guilt. At some point I was like, okay, I can't take it anymore. I don't care. Whatever this whole Hiya thing, I'm not going to prescribe to it. And I'm just going to try to live into my own power. So that's how that's kind of like where that feeling came from of me just kind of negating this whole concept of Hiya.
Yeah.
I think Hiya. Okay, so for me, right, Hiya, it literally translates so that into like the English word shame, right, or feeling embarrassed.
Yeah,
right?
embarrassment. Yeah.
I think there's and kind of Girly touched upon the idea of guilt. I think it often gets a little confused that they're related, but they are related. And I think there's this feeling of, because guilt usually means you've done something wrong,
right?
And Hiya usually means like you're embarrassed about a certain situation. Like in this case, like we can't afford to pay the light bills or whatever it might be. But I also think in our culture, Hiya gets in this gray area of humility, even though it doesn't translate that way. Of like, to kind of like not be like mayabang or not be kind of show offy.
Yeah.
So even in the term like walang hiya, like even though it really translates, you have no shame. Really, it's an expression more about like you don't have the humility or the like being the idea of being humble. So it's a very complex thing that kind of touches what Girly was talking about in terms of power, but it also touches upon the idea of like of guilt. And at a very young age, being embarrassed is almost part of like growing up. I've gone through like hazing rituals with older cousins of things that you would do. And again, this is not a very Filipino thing, but I remember as a young Filipino, that was part of your hazing, like to feel that shame and embarrassment around a group of your peers, whether it's the way they mock you and if they want you to start fighting or whatever it might be, or playing tricks on you, playing games. So it's embedded pretty early on socially. And then on the guilt aspect of it and the way I imagine our elders or our parents use it, Hiya is like the embarrassment you feel if you don't live up to the standard of what it's supposed to be as a good Catholic or a good boy or good girl.
I think that like the whole standard or Hiya, like it's a way to check your younger siblings or your younger relatives, because I have had this discussion with Mike numerous times about his own siblings and how no one seems to check them. But
My one sibling, you mean?
I mean, I'm just
Whose
saying.
birthday it was today?
Happy birthday.
Get your life.
Happy birthday later.
A month later. Get
You know
your
he
life,
listens to the
Matt.
show too,
I don't
Melissa.
think he listens, but whatever.
He totally does.
Because like I'm an only child, but I've been told I don't act like one, and it's because I was raised with a cohort of cousins,
a village,
and it was their job in life to make sure that I didn't get too big for my britches. So if I ever acted out or thought I was better than I thought I was, like no, there is my ate to be like, what are you doing? Stop. Or my cousin to be like, don't do that. So like that's where I think the family structure helps you raise you. But I do feel like in that situation with the ang larawan, so butchered that.
Larawan.
I would feel the same way. Like I would just be like, you are so stupid. Just like, just turn like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, get over it.
Close
like,
that stupid window.
Well, see, that's why I think there's good and bad, and I would say like hiya is like it's neutral, right? So hiya or shame is a way for a group to coexist. It's a way of checking people who are acting bad, acting against the social norms, to the detriment of the group,
Right.
to check them, right? But when it comes where it becomes bad is when the morals of the social group are patriarchal, are racist, are classist,
shameful.
yeah. That's where it becomes bad, and that's where I understand where you're coming from, because whatever people were trying to check you was it was based on morals that were actually bad, right? So you were checked for talking against patriarchy, because the social norms of the group was patriarchal,
Right.
yeah. So that's where our argument stemmed from. That's what I was trying to say, Curly.
I'd always assumed that it was one of those things that only existed in places like the burbs or whatever. It was a middle class kind of issue. Just because, like, when I would explain, and going back to Elaine's contentions about my family and other things, right? Like, whenever things would happen in our family or just outside of our family amongst people that we knew, no one would want to talk about it because it was, number one, if to put it out there would be to hold it up to be shamed, by the community in some way. Like there was a time when everybody was like losing their homes, like all of our relatives and my family was included in this, right? But no one would talk about it and no one would try to seek out help for it.
Yeah.
I even tried to connect my parents with like SEPA and help for them to not lose their home. But what would happen is people would just lose their home. No one would talk about it. No one would see them for like a year or two. They would just not interact with anybody because they didn't want to have to deal with that kind of shame with that. Even if all of them had gone through these things, what was the idea that like to be out there once experiencing kind of this traumatic kind of moment and, was shameful somehow. And so like the best way to deal with it is to not be in the public eye, not to be seen when you're closing the curtains.
Right. And in some respects too, I kind of associate it with, I think it's I would say it's a Filipino thing in terms of people being so resistant even to seek like counseling services or like mental health. Like, you guys talked about this in a previous episode, but that idea of feeling shameful because, there's people need some sort of therapist to just kind of guide them through whatever issues that they're dealing with emotionally. Like that also I feel like stems from this whole concept of hiya, and that to me is not healthy.
And I think also it clashes, like I guess it clashes with kind of American Western very hyper capitalist society where it's about competition and about like class and it's tied to like labor relations.
Yes.
So that's where Filipino or whatever kind of more communal culture clashes with a more individualistic culture like in America.
And even the word itself, like hiya, and like there's a word called mahiyain, right? If you're called mahiyain, it means you're shy. Right?
Oh,
and, like that's why there's actually a real big difference between saying walang hiya, you with no shame, or mahiyain, meaning shy. But the key word there is this word called hiya, it's really rooted in a lot of different things, right? Guilt, shyness, really? Like the opposite of that is being someone who's not shy, who's being, what Joe was saying was like individualistic and maybe even brave, right? Like, but mahiyain is rooted in that same vein of like, kind of like, you know, humility and kind of like not being outward, right? Not showing our neighbors that we're not quite to the standard. You know, a lot of that stuff is all rooted in that same word. So it's a very, very complex thing. I think that it's an interesting thing that we brought up because a lot of times when we, I imagine like a Filipino American peers that we have when we talk about hiya, it's like, oh yeah, shame, and then we kind of stop the conversation with the idea of hiya there. It's a very Filipino thing to, you know, hiya and pakikisama and or chismis and a lot of these keywords, and we never really got into like what does it actually mean? What does it stand for? And you know, Gerlie, I think you brought up some really interesting things about like how that sort of kind of impedes progress.
Yeah.
And on the other hand too, with what Joe was saying is like, it's actually a good check and balance when it comes to like social norms.
So how do you kind of meld the two, right? So, for example, in Gerlie's situation where you were put in your place because of hiya, right? Because of you know, because they were saying, oh, you have no shame for being so outspoken about things,
Right.
How do you continue to keep? How do you change the morals of the group to make it more inclusive without being ostracized through like walang hiya?
Well, you know what? The other interesting part to this is I actually don't remember my parents ever like I don't remember what the Ilocano word is for hiya. If anybody can look it up, that'd be great. But I didn't.
Hiya, ijay.
Oh my God!
Did you just make that noise?
Yes.
No, hiya is hiya's hiya, and then
No, but,
ijay
like-
means there.
I didn't start hearing that term until I started hanging out with more Tagalog or even Visayan speakers. So probably like more
Are you
around
blaming
my
us?
middle
That's what you're saying?
school, high school years. Well, I'm just saying. I don't even remember what the Tagalog word is. I mean, maybe my mom just told me like stop being so shameful in English, but I don't recall what the Ilocano term is.
I can't find it.
Oh, maybe there's no term.
No, it's not. That's like because
Yeah,
it
see, I
sucks.
mean-
Is like Google Translate has no Ilocano.
Well,
Anyways.
so like changing the norms, right? Because what I was leading to is like, you know, it kind of was what you were talking about, Gerlie, when you said hiya kind of impedes progress and is this like suppression of power.
Yeah.
Because if somebody says, "Wag kang mahiya," like don't be shy, right? Like I was saying earlier, is like be brave, be bold. But if what's being told to you is mahiya ka naman, you know, like.
Right.
You know, like be what you know, it's a
Chill.
Yeah, just chill, right? Mahiya ka naman, chill, or
Stop being so angry.
it's just a very confusing concept on the Western side, and
Yeah.
I think in order to change, I don't know how to change that, Joe.
Yeah,
It's hard.
Or like for example, like with Mike's family situation, like how do you bring up the fact that all these Filipinos are foreclosing their homes, but no one wants to talk about it,
Right.
Because of hiya. Like
Yeah.
how do you do that without being called walang hiya or
Yeah.
without
Or-
being
Well, maybe it's just education or normalizing the reality, like it's a reality check.
Yeah, I think it's a normalizing of having like certain topics like mental health and whatnot. Because if you normalized the fact that the housing situation, the housing market in that time, that like that
Affects
was
a lot of
it was
people,
affecting
right.
everybody, and it wasn't like an unusual thing. Like people were losing their homes, and
Right.
I think I had this conversation with my best friend Ivy like last week. I was like, can you imagine how much less drama there would be in this world if you said what you mean and mean what you say?
Right.
Like no one would get confused. Like you wouldn't have to read between the lines, because like if I'm telling you, girly, your tea is cold, I'm telling you that because I know the tea is cold. But if you drink your tea and then it's actually hot, you could be like, Elaine, no, you're wrong. The
That's
tea
cold.
is hot.
Then why do people chismes?
That's the
Entertainment.
It's fun.
fun.
Like the prince says it's fun.
It's chismis.
Well, because there's I think.
No, I mean, why don't people actually say what
because it's less it's boring if you just tell it straight up. I think.
Well,
I think it's hard.
It's hard.
It's really hard.
And I know
that too,
it
but-
is hard because I've done that, and I think I rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
Oh yeah.
I rub a lot. I mean, girly, can you relate?
Yeah, maybe
to
it's not
me,
boring. Maybe
babe?
it is hard.
Yeah, she can. I think she's a.
I've rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because there are times Mike knows this. I cannot fake it.
Yeah.
It's on my face.
There's also a difference between saying factual things. I can't necessarily go to girly your tea is, I don't know, maybe it's cold, maybe it's warm, But in terms of things that are more subjective, I think it's still part of the social norm to not offend, to There's that aspect of things. So you don't necessarily have the ability to say it straight up, because you also don't want to feel the embarrassment or the shame of offending somebody, I think. So that's part of it. But I also stand by my idea that it's actually entertainment when you have a certain group of people that you can gossip with or whatever.
Well, if I had this conversation that broke down what the heck Hiya meant when I was younger, we probably would have had a very different conversation.
What happened?
Sabi ko, police siya.
Did you call her the grammar police or the Hiya police or something?
She's just police.
He's like, you're so wrong. Why don't you try to understand?
I didn't say that.
You totally said that.
But just coming to show, it's really deep, right?
Because I think I think for a lot of people who are blunt and straightforward, there's a feeling that if you talk like that, you're not empathetic to somebody,
right?
And it's not that I lack of empathy. It's more I need to convey what I'm saying right away, and I'm not going to mince words. I struggle with small talk. If someone's like, "Hey, how's it going?" My instant reaction is not to say it's fine. I actually say truthful answers. Sometimes someone I was walking in the hallway at work and someone's like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And they're trying to go to the bathroom and I'm leaving, and I'm like, "Actually, I'm really tired." And then they're like, "Oh, what?" And I was like, "You asked me how's it going.
Right.
I'm going to tell you the truth.
Right.
I'm not going to say, oh yeah, it's great. Yeah." I don't function that way.
Whereas the social norm is when somebody says, "Hey, how are you?" "Oh, I'm fine. Thank you."
I don't do
just
that.
be on your way. Yeah, no, I totally understand. I mean, and also for me, being direct is a way for me to make sure that I am understanding whatever situation I'm in. So it may come out really blunt, but it's also because I don't want to confuse what's happening. Right. And if there is a situation that needs to be addressed, then I want to address it.
I have a question.
Yes.
Girly and Elaine.
Yes.
How do your parents react to your straightforwardness, or do they?
So I have a question. I'll answer that question with a question. My parents are not passive aggressive.
Okay.
My parents, as Mike has experienced, are aggressive. My parents say what they mean and mean what they say.
Okay.
I was raised in a house like that.
Okay.
So are your parents like that?
Dude, my mom is totally like that.
It's straightforward and really?
She will say she does not miss words either. And so
Just laughing because I remember one time when I guess me and Girly first got married. We were talking about Girly's cousin-in-law, John, and we were talking about, oh, he's a great handyman. He built his own house, stuff like that. And then your mom said, oh, isn't that nice? Jusen married someone who could build stuff. He could do all the things. And then what I said, I was like, yeah, I can do those things too. I could just call John and said, hey, can you build this, please? So anyway,
I totally don't remember that.
She's not totally Sometimes she's
sometimes
passive aggressive.
she's passive aggressive.
What about you, Mike? Your parents are they
Hello.
Yeah.
are they pretty straightforward?
So no,
No.
not at all. In fact, this is probably again the most frustrating thing I think for Elaine's experience with my family is that. Well, number one, what she likes to say is that they tend to not talk with each other; they just tend to talk at each other.
Yeah.
Yep.
But also, my dad is very non-confrontational. My mom is confrontational, but not directly. Right?
She's passive
She likes to throw shade. In other words, sometimes very elegantly, sometimes very bluntly. But I mean, at the same time, she's not like she's going to say exactly, how she's feeling. She's just going to like let you know how she's feeling in a certain way without really kind of addressing kind of the deeper things. And so I'm the mix of those two things somehow.
No.
And so like that's why with Elaine, sometimes when she gets really blunt about things, I'm like, wow, you're hurting my feelings. Why are you being so mean to me right now?
It's not even.
And it's like it's just I'm not used to that level of like
Directness.
direct honesty, right? Which I love people being honest with me, but at the same time, it's just like, can you just temper that a little bit? It's a little harsh. It's a little rough for me,
So all of Girly's family always told Girly, be nice to Joe.
I tell that to my mom every day. I tell them when I talk to my mom, I say, be nice to dad. Because she's going to be...
How about your parents, Joe?
My parents are totally passive aggressive, and
Mine too.
they are just so non-confrontational.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very.
Is it
collective. I think it's. I don't know why. I mean, that's just art, right? Yeah. And it's part of kind of being part of a social group, right? You kind of be a little bit more non-confrontational in that way. Yeah. But the thing is, like, you know how to. You know how to read. You know how to read.
Oh, I can't.
You know how to read their parents.
Crazy.
And like I know how to read my parents. You know when they're frustrated. You know when they're mad.
Yeah.
You know when they don't approve of something.
Yeah.
Like it's just a skill you learn.
Yeah.
By having passive aggressive parents.
Oh, yeah. I'm the same, dude.
So for me, I just look at it like I don't think it's a negative. I just look at it as like you read the other person first before you act on yourself.
It's something in your toolbox in terms of like reading people. I get that.
Yeah, and like you think for me, it's kind of like you think about the other person first before you do anything. Right. So I kind of like that.
The reason I bring it up is I actually didn't think I was going to talk about this, but the reason I bring up whether your parents are is generationally, we're like being in the States. My parents would usually kind of talk about me, like if they're hurt, if I said something that was very direct or maybe even rude. I'm sorry, mom and dad. They would say, "Oh, so American." Because you grew up here, there's this like it's very passive aggressive way of saying I don't approve.
Yeah.
It's also like what has America done to you? Because sa Pilipinas, no way, not like this will not happen in the Philippines. If we were in the Philippines, totally. Like but we're here. So I think my parents are also like that. So I think you're a kinder son than I am because I'm testing those boundaries. I've told my parents once, I'm like, there's some things that I do say that I need to not waste time and be direct with you on.
Yeah.
Right.
It is not personal. This didn't work, by the way, so I don't recommend this at all.
I could just see your mom.
They were like looking at me like,
to her.
this
Like-
motherfucker,
this didn't
American boy.
Dude, you gotta tell the diary story.
Oh, I can't do it.
No, now you
I
have
can't do
to.
it. I can't do it. I
absolutely
can't do
do.
it.
I mean-
We'll bring it up another time.
It's a diary. I wouldn't want to.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We'll edit that. We'll edit that
no. I'll actually. I can probably do it. I can probably.
Okay.
So I'll edit some stuff out. So my mom keeps a journal, and she can't write anymore physically. So sometimes, she'll ask me she'll dictate some stuff to me. Right. So she'll say, "Oh, went to the casino today with my son Ryan. She drove me and stuff like that. My caregiver came over to give me a shower today, stuff like that." So I visit her sometimes during the week, and she goes, "Oh, anak, nandito ka. Okay. oh, can you write in my journal? I'm like, sure. What do you want me to write? He goes, oh, just write that, my apo was here over the last weekend. I'm like, okay, what else? On Monday, write, Ryan did not come home because he was somewhere else. he did, and I was like, what? And I visit. I live in my own place, but it's her way of saying you shouldn't be living in your own place. It's her way of saying like, come visit me more. But it's very she was very sweet about it. But she's like, hindi ka umuwi. Sulat mo na lang dun. Write it down. I'm like, okay. And I was like, holy crap, this is like takes the cake and passive aggressiveness. And like she embedded that within another one. It goes, oh, and then right the other side, my yaya gave me a palabok. I'm like, oh, we're gonna talk about the other one, Mom. Like, I don't live here.
Oh my god.
So yes,
that's pretty awesome.
I have a question for Girly, since we both have parents that are like this. When I'm with my mom and dad, and Mike has seen this in person, when we have normal conversation, it sounds like we're fighting. Is that like how you are with your family?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, so it's just me. We just sound like we're arguing.
Yeah, you're probably just nuts.
Because like,
what's an example?
Yeah, what?
Like it could be, we could just be over, and then like I'll walk in the house, and my dad'd be like, "Oh, what do you want to eat?" I'm like, I don't know, Dad. What do I want to eat? What do you want to eat? And then my mom is in the background going, I'm hungry. Give me food. And like, that is literally how it works. And then we conclude, like, we'll go get Red Lobster or something, and the game's over. But like,
the game's over.
Like, it's just like,
it's tonal.
Yeah. The tone is like, we always are
harsh.
so angry. Yeah. But I think once before we had old neighbors, like the complaint was, it sounds like there's fighting next door all the time. And it was literally just because we were shouting at each other, but that's how we talked.
I have to say, I think my tone has definitely softened a bit more
because of Joe.
Because of Joe.
Joe's pumping his fists up in the air like he's won something.
What's your trick? It hasn't worked for me yet. So.
I remember. I don't know if it was after we had gotten married or like he had just come back from Seattle and we were finally in the same space, but we had this really crazy argument where we ended up at opposite sides of the house. Like he was in the bedroom and then I was in the office. We just had to go to our own quarters. And then I remember him coming back at some point. He's like, you know what? If this is the way it's going to be, I can't do it. I can't do it. And it was the first time that I heard him raise his voice. Oh. So then I was like, oh.
Maybe I need to be nice.
It sounded a little serious.
Because all the other times he's just kidding. I didn't really mean to be.
This is one of the most personal.
Why are you airing my dirty laundry, dude?
I was going to say, this is the most personal episode.
No, I don't even remember what the argument was.
I don't remember that fight.
It was about your tone.
I feel like that's, I don't know, maybe it's because we're like strong Filipino women, because Ate, if you listen, sorry. But my Ate Kari, she's the oldest grandchild, and she was first. She's a daughter. And I feel like she had it the roughest. And she used to I used to think she steamrolled her boyfriends. Like, because I would watch her talk to them, and I would just be like, you're not going to last. Like, she was just so mean to this one guy who I grew up, like, when I was like 6 years old. This dude was her high school boyfriend, so we saw him at all the parties. He didn't last. And I think he didn't last because he didn't stick up to her. And so the person that she's married to now, my cousin Vinny, my cousin-in-law.
My cousin Vinny.
Like, literally his name. I think in their relationship, like he put his foot down and was like, you cannot talk to me like this. Yeah. You can't do that. Yeah. And I just remember thinking like, wow, someone stood up to Ate. Like, I was really shocked. And then I was just like, is this how you adult? Mike has not learned that yet, because I mean, maybe I'm sometimes nice. Sometimes.
So I want to kind of encapsulate the idea of communication.
Yes.
Because I think what Joe, what you were saying earlier about, like, it's not necessarily a bad thing for passive aggressiveness. You just got to know what the other person or other persons are actually trying to communicate to you. Once you learn that skill and once you understand that, you know, they're trying to tell you something, maybe subliminally or not so directly, you act accordingly. Same thing with being direct. I tried something with my parents about being more direct. And I remember telling them this. I said, Mom and Dad, it's not personal. I want you to know that I'm past all of the, we love each other. I'm past all of the fluff that I need to give maybe other people that I don't know how to gauge them yet. But we're family. That's not going to change. I want you to know that whatever the argument we were having during that time was, it didn't work in the sense that it didn't like, make them less passive aggressive. No, but I needed to let them know that for me, it worked for me in the sense like I at least wanted them to know that, because a lot of their arguments is like, oh, you don't love us? I'm like, oh my God, of course I do. You know, it's not about that. And it's really about like, what are you trying to communicate? Whether it be through gossip, through shame, what are you trying to communicate? Are you trying to keep up with the Joneses? What are you trying to communicate to the social norm? So I think once that communication becomes more, I don't know, cultivated, and people understand that, you know, when it comes to mental health, there is an issue. When it comes to housing, there is an issue. We can probably change it. Now, the mechanism to which to do that, whether it be directness or passive aggressiveness, may not change. You just gotta take the time to understand or develop your skills to do that. So I don't know. That's my take on all this. Now I'm ashamed.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so all
the
right.
lesson learned is
Hia is never gonna go away.
No. Chismis
It's part of being. It's part of being part of a village, right?
Yeah. Chismis is also being part of a village.
In order to have a communal society, to have a village, you have to it's a lot of social relations.
It takes a village.
It takes it. Now the problem is the social norms of the village need to hopefully progress and be more inclusive and etc. And like, it's okay not to be an adult and not have kids. It's okay to be an adult and not get married, you know, etc. All those kind of things. Those need to change. But I think Hiya and Chismis aren't going to go away. And those are just mechanisms to kind of keep the village alive.
I've learned I need to be nicer to Mike. Mike's just snickering at me.
You're nice.
Well, and now I know. Now I know that Joe can always translate for me when I don't understand the nuances of what's happening.
Yeah, he does that by going, Carly.
All right.
And that Ryan needs to get married.
Oh,
We just said it's okay.
It's okay. What social norms are you trying to perpetuate?
Where did that come from? All right. Well, thank you again for listening to us. Hopefully you have kind of compelling opinions, stories, experiences about Hiya, Chismis, etc.
Yes.
Of all the stuff we talked about. Let us know. 805-394 TFAL.
Let us know. Let us know. I just thought of that Boyz II Men song. Let it snow. And then I was like, let us know. 805-394 TFAL. I was trying to sing it. It's not working. Sorry.
All right. With that, we thank you very much.
thank you.
That was good.
This Filipino American Life is produced by Michael Nailat. Our intro and outro music is by Roger Habon, aka 10.4 Raj. Resident reality checker Girly Colado, legal advisor Rianne Fajardo, and graphic design by Vincent Collyer.